Welcome back to another reading and correcting of The Used Child. With me, Kidar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Today, we are doing Chapter 33. The boy waved to Alex as the human entered the hover. Tristan waved too. The gesture made Alex pause, and he gave them a small wave in return. Tristan wondered what Alex thought of it, being waved goodbye. If it perplexed him, he didn't show it. The back closed, and a moment later the side shimmered, the letters forming in the dark, vanishing. The letters vanished, leaving only the dark blue. Then even that vanished until the sides were the pale gray of any random cargo hover. It climbed above the canopy and disappeared. The boy watched the sky, a wistful expression on his face. He studied the boy. This wasn't about Alex leaving. Alex had been careful not to become too close. About his father. The multiple times he thought he'd finally see him, only to have it be prevented. We're taking on the multiple time. I think I'm falling. I think here I fell in the trap of way too many commas. The multiple time he thought he'd finally see him, only to have it be prevented, were taking its toll. Starting to crack the boy's control. Tristan wasn't certain he could change that in the few months they had here until the boy's father arrived, and possibly having the boy still miss him would work in Tristan's favor, reinforce his position as a surrogate when the time came. The boy went back to the eating area and took his plate and pan to the wash basin. He worked efficiently, but slowly. He was still too young to know how to compartmentalize how he felt. You okay, buddy? Tristan asked in a soft voice. The boy nodded. Tristan placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You know you can talk to me, right? The boy bit his lower lip. Will I ever see my father? The corner of his eyes glistened. Hey! Tristan rubbed the boy's arm. Don't cry. The boy quickly dried his arm. I'm not. Not what I mean, he said, beginning something that ran contrary to everything his father taught him. He pulled the boy against him. It's okay to cry, but you don't have to. You'll see your father, I promise. It doesn't matter who gets in our way. You will be able to stand before him. Looked down at him and gave him a sincere smile. The boy sniffled. I'm sorry. I'm not a baby anymore. I shouldn't be crying. It's your father. That's normal to be. It's normal to be sad. Oh, you're crying, boy. It doesn't matter. None of them matter. Do you hear me? It's just me, you, and your brother now. I miss mine too, he said softly. He let the boy go and took his plate, dunking it in the basin. You cried too? Tristan looked in the distance, remembering his hand closing around his father's neck, the momentary outrage at realizing his father wouldn't live by the rules he taught Tristan. Not anymore. I lost him a long time ago. You lost him? Tristan gave the confused boy a smile. He died when I was a young man. The boy had his arm around Tristan's waist. I'm sorry. Tristan patted his head, ruffling the hair. Thanks. The boy let him go, and they finished washing in silence. Once everything had been set aside to dry, the boy took a data pad and sat by a tree. A data pad? His data pad. And sat by a tree. Tristan gave him a few seconds, then called, Hey, buddy, how about we take a walk in the forest? I can show you how to identify edible plants, and we can use them for our meals. The boy looked up. Can't eat plants from the forest. They have to come from the farms. And chuckled. Where do you think the plants growing on the farms came from before that? The boy looked at him, confused. Well, the farms existed. Everything came from the forest or the plains. It grew wild, and a lot of them still do. The boy looked at him doubtfully. How do you know that? My planet, Somalia. A lot of people live by gathering plants in the forest. That's how I did it when I grew up. He grabbed the analyzer and hooked it to his belt. Come on, I'll show you. The boy joined him, and Tristan guided him through the trees. After a dozen steps, he crouched by a patch of green leaves on the ground. What are they? The boy asked. Took a picture of them with his data pad. I don't know. Tristan plucked a leaf. Is it good to eat? Maybe. Tristan watched the boy search through pictures. He broke the leaf and sniffed it. Peppery. Barely any sweetness. Buddy, put your pad aside. Put your pad away. You don't need it. I need it to find out if I can eat it. Wow, you don't need that. The boy was still comparing pictures. Don't you have a search program on your pad? He hadn't wondered why the boy did this search manually in the clearing. It was part of how he had fun. But this was a survival issue. Not allowed to have programs on my pad unless I make them. And do you know coding? The boy shook his head. I start that next year. Watched him. He didn't realize that in all probability there wouldn't be a next year. There wouldn't be a next year where he'd learn coding. It was possible the boy wouldn't have a next year at all. Come on, buddy. Put that away. I'm going to show you how to figure out what you can eat without technology. That way, even if you never learn coding, or if you crash somewhere and everything's broken, you'll be able to survive on more than nutrient bars. Or look at Tristan. A data pad can't break. Raise an eyebrow. Things the boy had to learn. Buddy, if the universe tries hard enough, it can break anything. Now, take a leaf and take a small bite from it. He demonstrated. Keep it on your tongue. There wasn't enough of it to taste the bitterness. The boy made a face. Bitter? The boy nodded. Most plants are bitter, even the ones from the farm, and you have to be careful of that. But if you want to pay attention, but what you want to pay attention to is if there's a tingling on your tongue. It can take a few minutes. That's a sign that the plant isn't good for you. You unhook the analyzer and scan the rest of the leaf. You have to, yeah, I have to set it for human biology. See this? Those are all the things that make up the plant. You know about chemistry, right? Boy nodded. Those are the elements that make everything. The elements that make everything. Right. See those highlighted in orange? Those are the things that are harmful to human. If you get too much of them in your system, the closer. Those are the things that are harmful to humans if they get too much of them in their system. The closer to red, the more dangerous they are. Everything here is light orange, so it's safe unless you eat too much. Holy. Okay. Sorry, editor, but how did you let this go by? So it's safe unless you eat. It's safe unless you eat so much you'll make yourself sick just by the volume of it? That doesn't make any actual sense. So it's safe. So it's safe unless you eat too much. But you'll make yourself sick just by the volume of it. There we go. Any tingling? The boy shook his head. Then this is something you could survive on. The boy made a face. Do I have to? Not this time. But if it was the only edible thing you could find, you'd be able to survive. You didn't react like it was bitter. I have more experience in eating food I don't like, but also I'm not going to react the same to the same. I'm not going to react to the food same way you do. Somalians are susceptible to different things. Human food never hurt me, so I eat mostly that. But you put too much sweetness in it, so I almost eat that, but you put too much sweetness in it. Also, the analyzer doesn't have a Somalian setting. There aren't enough of us in space for the corporations to bother adding it yet. So is sweet bad for you? Just a smile. Sweet's bad for everyone. Didn't you say candy was bad for you? That's candy. It isn't the same. Then eyed the boy, the smile broadening. You know, when this is over, Should take you to a candy factory so you can see how they're made. But to get back to my people, Somalia doesn't have any plants that are sweet as the fruit humans grow, so we never adapted to overly sweet food. It boy nodded. So can sugar be dangerous to you? No. It'll just make me sick if I force myself to eat too much of it. And the tingling? That's a bad sign. The bitterness? That's a little tougher. If it's only a little bitter, it's probably okay. But humans and Somalians have trained themselves to tolerate it. It's why every ship comes with one of those, he indicated the analyzer. These will tell you exactly what you can and can't eat. Smile. But today we're practicing it. We're practicing without help. How about other species? Shrugged. I expect every species has gotten used to some level of bitterness, but I don't know other species as well as I know Somalians and humans. If bitter is bad, why did the Academy have Sarimon sometimes? Those are really bitter. I don't know that one, but I guess it's just as. I guess that's same as liking candies, even though they're bad for me. Some people like Some people like bitter food, and the farmers will grow what people like. There's a lot of things that can be done to farm food to make them safer while keeping aspect like bitterness. In the wild, you want to be more careful. Tristan helped the boy stand, and they moved to a patch of different plants and did the test again. He barely reacted to that one, and Tristan showed him the scan. Almost no orange at all. They moved to a plant. They moved plant to plant this way, tasting them and trying to guess how much orange it would have. A few the boy spat out immediately, and some the boy had no problem with, while Tristan had to spit it out. When they came to the first bush with berries on it, Tristan had the boy crush the fruit, a little of the juice. The boy enjoyed it, and his scan showed no orange. When Tristan tried it, the sweetness was overpowering. When they came to a tree bearing fist-sized brown and yellow fruit, Tristan hoisted the boy up to grab one for each of them. He taught him how to hold a knife and how to cut the fruit without hurting himself. He tasted the juice, and when the boy proclaimed it sweet and not bitter, he proceeded to devour it. Tristan was more restrained and made a note to give the boy one of Alex's immune booster, or half a one. It wouldn't do for the boy to get sick. They made lunch of the fruits, the boy climbing the trees to get more, and during that time showed him how to throw his knife. Once the boy was sated, they went back to testing the plants. A roar came in the distance, something from a large animal, and the boy pressed himself against Tristan's side. He smiled reassuringly at him and an arm protectively over him. I've got the him twice. He smiled reassuringly and placed an arm protectively over him. They found tubers under a plant with large leaves, and Tristan explained how those kind of leaves were a good sign it was something it was worth digging. How do you know so much about what's in the forest? Boy asked as they made their way back to the camp in diminishing light. I grew up in something similar to this. Your city had a forest? Smile. I grew up inside a forest. My father taught me how to identify plant I could eat. Of course, his father had considered Tristan getting sick a perfectly acceptable way for him to learn the lesson. Tristan sometimes wondered if his father hadn't been hoping Tristan would actually die in the first few years. They added the few leaves they brought back to the meal they prepared. When they were done, the boy took his knife and practiced throwing it at a tree. He was still doing that when Alex returned. The human watched the boy from the hover before heading for Tristan. You gave him a knife? He hissed. He needed to cut open fruits. Alex glowered. That isn't an eating knife. That's what were you doing with a what were you doing with a merc knife small enough for him to use? Tristan smiled. I don't believe this. The station? You got that before we left? You were already planning on arming him back there? Tristan didn't answer. Alex didn't need to know he had supplies in the hold to arm an armor about someone the size of the boy. There was no telling what a job would entail, and obtaining supply once the job started wasn't always possible. Fine. You got him to cut fruit with it. The boy, how is that helping him cut fruit? The knife bounced off a tree, and the boy ran to pick it up. Tristan fixed his gaze on Alex. You seem to be forgetting your place, Alex. The human ground his teeth, but didn't reply. Knife throwing is a good skill to have. You know that, Alex. It lets you hit opponents at a distance. A well-aimed throw can incapacitate someone long enough for you to finish them, or tie them up if you need them alive. Yes, I know. Alex opened his jacket to show the harness with its dozen knife, but with the anger until it was under control. When he spoke, his voice was even. He's just a kid. He is a child. No one has bothered preparing for the harshness of the universe. Knowledge is all well and good, but it won't help him when someone attacks him. What? Why would you, that, I, Alex took a few breaths. What is the point of doing this, considering how it's going to end for him? I'm building a bond between him and me. But damn it, why? Alex glanced at the boy to see if he'd noticed his outburst. But he was focused. Alex glanced at the boy to see if he'd noticed his outburst, but he was focused on his throwing. Yeah, I was raised a school grammar, but always needed a comma before it, and I've learned through all the writing it's not actually true all the time. But he was focused on his throwing. Please tell me why, okay? Help me understand how that's going to help get masters here any faster. Finn took a step forward, and Alex wisely took one back. I don't owe you any explanation, Alex. None. Those I provide are because it suits me to do so. Understood. I just know, Alex, you don't. You made a valid point when explaining that with the ship, knowing how I thought helped you anticipated what I needed, and I will keep this in mind going forward. That does not mean you are entitled to knowing all my plans. As far as you are concerned, I am doing this to the boy because I enjoy using people and making sure they are hurt by the time I'm done with them. Learn to be happy with this, Alex. Alex set his face into a hard mask. No, I won't stop you, but don't ever ask me to be happy about you hurting a kid. Turned and headed to the hover. Tristan followed him, and silently they unloaded the boy joined them, and Tristan ruffled his hair again. The boy giggled and put his hair back in place. Alex didn't watch. It took 15 minutes to take everything out of the hover except for one crate. We'll handle this one, Alex said to the boy, who ran off and grabbed his data pad and entered. And Alex said to the boy, who ran off to grab his data pad and entered his habitat. Alex looked at the crate, finally shrugging with a soft curse, then pushed it toward Tristan. It was a cube 2 feet on all sides. This is going to help you bond with Emil, he said with disdain. Tilted an ear, he opened it. He frowned at the spheres of various size. He recognized some from studying humans, but most he'd never seen before. What is this? He took out one 9-inch in diameter, firm but not hard, his claws digging into its surface, which was textured with dot. It's a ball. Another one out. This one fit in his hand. This is a ball. Seen humans, children, throw those at each other in a ritual he hadn't bothered looking into. And that's a ball too, just a different kind. Tristan eyed Alex. And what's their use? Alex pointed to the small one. You can throw to each other, the larger one. That one you kick to one another. Put a small ball in one crate. What's the point of that? Alex sighed. Helps people bond. Believe it or not, I thought you should do that with him. Now, at least this way you don't have to traumatize him to get it done. Kick that one to one another, you talk, you have fun. We can have fun walking the forest. And what? Give him survival instruction? Tristan, he's a kid, not a merc. Tell me you know how to have fun at least. Tristan remembered climbing trees as high as they would support him. He remembered looking up at the sky in the distance. He remembered lying to his father, telling him he was trying to spot animals. He remembered the beating when his father had figured out he wasn't why he did it. Age. Fun will not help him, will not keep him alive. What's the fucking point? You're going to... Tristan punched Alex with enough strength. He should have ended up bloody on the ground. Forgot he was still holding the sphere. The impact forced Alex back, but he was able to keep his footing. And he didn't bleed. With a snarl, Tristan let go of the sphere, but his claws were caught in it. Shook his hand, but that wasn't enough. He pulled it off and glared at Alex. You seem to constantly forget that I do what I want. You continue to act like you have any say in what happens. He threw the sphere at Alex. Continue, and the next time I will not be holding something to soften the blow. Alex opened his mouth and shut it as Tristan began growling. When he was certain the human wouldn't speak, he continued. Your only job at this time is to get me my equipment. I will bond with the boy however I see fit. If you can't understand that, tell me now so I can take the time to clarify what I mean while the boy can't hear us, and you can then leave and take the time away from here to heal. Tristan's knuckle popped as he tightened his fist. He felt the claws dig into his palm, but he didn't care. He needed Alex to understand the danger he was in. If that meant pounding his thick skull in, so be it. Alex looked down. I know, he spoke softly, and Alex was hopeful that Alex read his head. Tristan punched him, and Alex spun, falling to the hover's floor. No, Tristan stated as Alex looked at him. You do not get to add the hope that I will act in a way you approve of. You do as you are told. You will, if you believe you have the right to ask something of me, we can have that discussion once the job is over. Now, if you want me to break something, you will drop this line of thought. The boy isn't yours to protect. Alex wiped the blood from his mouth. How am I going to do my part of the mission if I'm hurt? He didn't manage to keep all the defiance out of his voice, and Alex stepped over to him. You are only picking up equipment or talking to people. You can get a portable bone regeneration in the unit in any city. You can tell them you got hurt trying to convince an actor to take on the role of that mercenary the vid is about. Just wanted to argue. Tristan could read it in his eyes, in the tension in his body. Then Alex deflated. You're right. Sorry. I won't do anything like this again. Snored. It seemed to be in his nature to want to protect someone weaker than him, regardless of the cost. Couldn't he see that such behavior would get him killed? Get some rest, he told the human. You have things to do tomorrow. This concludes chapter 33 of The Used Child. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next one's going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the book, as well as the other in the series, they are available on all major e-retailer. Want to support me? That's on my Patreon, where you can get access to basically everything I've written. And if you want to listen to me do these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes. And with that, I wish you a good day.